What's up, guys? Again, this is Josh, one of your Akamai developer advocates, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into something super cool. We're going to explore how to visualize Apache logs using the Elastic Stack on Ubuntu 22.04. Before we jump into the installation, let's talk about the Elastic Stack. It consists of Elasticsearch, logstash, and Kibana. Each of these play a vital role in managing and visualizing logs, providing you with real-time insight into your server's performance. So let's get right into it. All right, so I'm logged into my Akamai account, and the first thing we need to do is create us a Linode. And so let's quickly walk through it right fast. Let's hit create Linode, and I'll be showing you guys on Ubuntu 22.04. So let's select that and then select your region. And the reason I wanted to go through and show you guys this process is because you need to have a specific amount of RAM to run Elasticsearch in this full stack. So what I'm gonna do is select the shared CPUs, and what I need is at least 2 gigabits of memory. And so as you can see, that is our Linode 2 gigabytes. So I'll select that. That should be enough for us to run Elasticsearch because it's kind of heavy on RAM as well as processors a little bit, but one processor or one CPU is good, and 2 gigabits of memory, especially in these fast cloud networks. These servers have high-end processors in them and high-end RAM super fast. So 2 gigabytes is enough. Just wanted to make sure you guys knew that. But if you need more, depending on whatever you're running this on, or if you're running this against other services or looking at other logs, you may need to up the RAM on it, but you can do that at a later time. I just wanted to at least give you the basics. So let's go through and finish creating it. All we have to do is create a password right fast for our root account. And what I'll do is I'll skip ahead and kind of show you guys the install. I'll skip certain ports, meaning that one thing I'll do once we create the Linode is create a user account, and I'll kind of skip that. And then we could just hit create and it'll start creating our Linode. All right, now that our server is provisioned and up and running, we can switch over to our terminal and go through the install. And I already went in and pre-configured the server setup for this process. I basically went through, created me a user account with sudo privileges. I also installed Apache because we need Apache install. That's what Elastic will be using. And the whole purpose of installing it is having Apache on there so we can monitor the logs using the Elastic Stack. And so I went through and did a lot of that just to save time on the video. But let's go down and log into our server. I already know what the IP address is. All you have to do is get it from our Linode manager. Our IP address is up there. All we have to do is SSH into it. Hopefully you have a sudo account, and that's what I'm logging into now. So, and then the IP address, and it'll automatically assume that we're using this account, which is our Josh account that we created on the server. So whatever user account you created, it'll pop up there. So all we have to do is type in our sudo password or our login password, and now we can go through the install. And the first thing you always want to do whenever you set up a fresh Linode is to update the system. So all we have to do is type sudo apt updates, and then also we can run it together. So sudo apt upgrade, and then we can put -y at the end of it, and this will allow us to run through. It'll check for updates in the current repositories, and then also upgrade the system if we need it. So let's go down and type in our sudo password and go through this process right fast. Super quick. I already updated the system actually in order to install Apache on there, so we don't have any updates on the system right now, but that's something that you want to do whenever you're installing something new on the server. I just wanted to run through it so you guys can see it. Now, Elasticsearch comes bundled with its own Java runtime, but logstash requires Java. So let's knock that out right fast. All we have to do is install that. So we can type sudo apt install, and then the package name is default, and I'm gonna tab it out. So default JRE, and then dash headless. We want to run our headless Java on there, and this will install the latest version of Java on the system. So just press Y for yes to get that installed. Let me move the cursor out the way so you guys can see. Super fast up here in the cloud. So just showing you guys that. Now, like I stated before, we configure and load log data. We need to install each piece of the stack, starting with Elasticsearch. And the first thing is to install the official Elastic apt package signing key. So let's go down and paste the command in there. I don't want to type it all the way out. It's a long command, but It's basically adding the Elastic key. You can find that on Elastic's website. That's why I didn't type it out. It's kind of long, but you want to add that key to the system so we can install from their repository. Now, the next thing is to add that repository. And like I said, that repository is on Elastic's website. So just go ahead and paste it in there so don't have to type it all the way out. But we're going to add that repository to our server's list of sources. As you can see right here, sudo t is going to add it to our sources list. It'll create that file elastic7.list or x.list. So let's press enter. That'll add that repository. And like I said, that'll allow us to search that repository and install packages from that repository along with the key. Now that that's added, all we have to do is refresh our repositories again. Since we added something new, we have to refresh those repositories. So sudo apt updates and press enter. And then this is one thing I want to point out to you guys. Whenever you add a, you'll see that repository there. It'll hit that repository, it'll test that repository and refresh everything from that repository so you guys can install whatever package you need to install from there. And what we want to install is Elasticsearch, and it's all one word. So let's go down and type it out so you guys can see, because we can go down and install it now. So let's type sudo apt install, and then like I said, it's Elasticsearch, one word, press enter. It'll install it from that repository for us. So, and it only takes a couple seconds to install, so we'll wait for it to finish. And one thing it's gonna do, it's not going to start the services similar to like Apache or MySQL. A lot of times when you install those packages, it'll automatically start the service. Well, that won't happen here because we have to do some configuring, and they know that you have to do configuring. That's why they don't start the service right away. So let's do this quick configuring. It's one file we have to configure, and this is dealing with the RAM of the server. That's why I said earlier we had to specify a specific amount of RAM, or at least the minimum size of RAM. Well, with Elasticsearch, you need at least a quarter of that RAM assigned to it, and it's a configuration file for it. So let's go right in there. It's sudo nano, and you can use whatever text editor you want to use, but it's under our etc directory, Elasticsearch. I'm gonna tap that out, and then j.options. And we need to go into this file. It's like a main configuration. This is our Java configuration or JVM configuration. And then let's scroll down. We're looking for one spot, and that is the JVM heap size. And so if we uncomment this, which is what I'm doing, I'm removing those pound signs or hashtag signs, whatever you guys are calling it nowadays. And then we need to modify this by making it a quarter. So 2 gigs, a quarter of 2 gigabytes of RAM is 512 megabytes. So that's why I'm changing this to 512. And we need to do that to both of them. This is the min and the max. So 512, 512. So 512 and then 512. So let's go on and save that. That's the only changes we need to make to it. You can look through this configuration file. I don't recommend you making any changes to it, but that's the only thing we need to modify. Now that that's done, like I said, the configuration is super short. All we have to do is type sudo systemctl and then enable and then elastic, and I'm gonna tab it out, search.service. So let's go on and enable that service, and it'll basically start up Elasticsearch each time we reboot the system. And then now we have to actually start the service, and it may take a little time. I know each time I've installed it, it's taking a little time here, so we can wait around for this to finish. I'll come back when it finishes. Now, we can make sure that it is up and running. We can also check the status of Elasticsearch, and I recommend you guys do that just to verify that the service is running. You can see that it's active, running, and then also enabled. So all our commands took. And then you can also check down here in the logs, the most recent logs. So starting Elasticsearch, and then down here it says started Elasticsearch, so we're good to go. And let's go on and quit. And then there's another check you can do. You can actually curl down the localhost, and basically that's the local IP address of the server, and then ports 9200. So 9200, press enter, and that'll give you information about the system as well, just to make sure that the API is available and running. So you can see the cluster name, you can see the cluster UD, you can see the number, the build number or the version number, and the type of build that it is, which is a dev package, you know, all the good information about the actual server. So Elasticsearch is fully up and running. Now let's move on to installing logstash. And in case I didn't explain it, logstash is a powerful data processing pipeline that ingests data from various sources, transforms it, and then send it to your desired destination, which in our case is Elasticsearch. And so let's just run through the quick install. All we have to do is type sudo apt install, and the package name is logstash. And let's press enter. They'll go through, install logstash for us. Doesn't take long for this to install, and then we can install Kibana right after this. I'll show you guys that. All right, so that's completed. Let's go on and get Kibana. And Kibana, if I didn't explain that, it is the visualization layer that works on top of Elasticsearch, and it lets you visualize your Elasticsearch data and navigate the Elastic stack. So let's get that installed right fast. Let's type sudo apt install, and then it's Kibana, just like it's spelled. That's the package name. All we have to do is press enter, go through, it'll install that right fast. So I'll be back when this finishes. All right, so everything is installed on a server. There is some configurations that we need to make in order to optimize performance. And that's mainly because we're not using this for an production environment. We have a small amount of RAM and everything is running on this single server. So I want to make a few changes to Elasticsearch. By default, Elasticsearch creates 5 shards and 1 replica for each index. And like I stated, that is suitable for production, but can be kind of an overhead for the small setup that we have within our Linode. So let's go down and make some changes. It's only one change we need to make to Elasticsearch, but we also need to make some changes to logstash as well. And I'll run through that right fast. So we need to create a template JSON file, and I'll show you guys how to do that right fast. We can go nano, and then we can create this in our current directory. And the name of the file, we can name it templates.json. Needs to be in a JSON format. So let's open that up. I already have everything written out for us to make the changes. And if you guys need help, please read the documentation so you can make the changes like I'm making. It's not that difficult. We're basically changing the number of shards to 1 and the number of replicas to 0. So let's go down and save this file. And it's a command you have to run in order to make those changes in Elasticsearch. So I'm gonna copy that. I already had that written out, and I'll show it to you guys right fast. I'll kind of go through it, but it's basically a curl command, and we're basically using that template file that we created locally in our home directory, and it'll look in our home directory the way we've written this out, and it'll make those changes to the server for us. So let's go down and press enter, boom, and what you're looking for is acknowledged equals true. So that lets you know that those changes have been made to the server. So we made the proper changes to our Elasticsearch server. Now we can move on to logstash because we need to do some configuration there as well. So let's go down and clear the screen right fast. But there's a Java file we need to make changes to for logstash to manage the RAM of the server. Like I said, we're using 2 gigabytes of RAM. It needs to be a quarter of that as well for logstash. So let's type sudo nano, and then under the etc directory and then the logstash directory, there is a java.options file as well. And there's only one change we need to make, and that is, like I said, modifying our RAM size. So this is the minimum and the maximum. So we can change that from 1 gig to 512 megabytes. And same thing down here for the maximum, we can do 512 M, and then we can save this file. We're good to go. Boom, press enter, good to go. And just so you guys know, I didn't create that file, it was already created. But there is a file we need to create, and that is our apache.config under logstash. And let's go down and create that right fast. And so all we have to do is type sudo nano, and then under logstash directory, there is another directory, config.d, and we want to create an apache.conf. And this is so logstash knows where to get the information from that it's ingesting, and it's going to transform that information so we can look at it in Elasticsearch. And so let's press enter, and I already have this written out, so we can, and this is like I said, generating a new file. So basically all we're doing is specifying the inputs for logstash. Now there's one change I need to make within this file. We have to specify the log file, and I know the file is located under var log and then Apache 2, and then let's / that and then access log. So that's the actual log location. So you want to make sure you specify the log location for Apache. And so let's go down and close that, make those changes, save. And one thing, if those log files are in a different location, which I doubt it, I use the default location, then you need to make changes into that file so it knows where to find those log files. Now we're done with the configuration of logstash as well. We can go down and start the service for it. So all we have to do is type sudo system ctl and then enable and press enter. That'll start the service for that, or enable the service. And then let's go in and start the service. So let's press enter. That'll start logstash for us. It's pretty quick. It's a small application. Now let's do the exact same thing for Kibana, because there is no other changes we need to make to Kibana or configurations we need for it. So Kibana, and tap that out, press enter. That'll enable that service, and then we can start Kibana as well. So, and Kibana dot service, press enter. That'll start that service for us. Now everything is running, and now we can do something simple to generate logs or log information. We can run a loop right fast for 5 times. So it's basically, and this is a bash, kind of a bash script. So let's type for I in sequence, and I believe we need to put a tag there, and then sequence 1 and then 5. We're basically setting the sequence. And sorry, I'm not trying to teach you guys bash right fast, but it's a lot that you could do with bash to do certain things on the system super easy. So curl, let's see, localhost, and this is basically gonna hit our server 5 times, or Apache server 5 times, just to generate some logs. And then we can sleep for 0.2 seconds, and then done. And let's run it right fast. Okay, cool. So as you can see, it ran it 5 different times. It pulled information about our server. It basically pulled that site 5 times for us. And actually, let's run it a couple times, and let's run it another time. All right, cool. So we are done. I generated some logs just so we can see something when we get into Elasticsearch. All right, so let's log out of our server, and it's a specific way to actually connect to our server. By default, Kibana binds to the local address, which is 127.0.0.1. Now this limits connections to local hosts, and so it's recommended to keep it this way for security purposes. Now, in order to access Kibana's web interface remotely, we have to use the SSH command to forward our ports to our workstation. And we need our IP address, which we can grab it off of our cloud manager. But let's type out the command right fast so you guys can see what I'm talking about. But all we have to do is type H, and then -N, capital N, and then dash capital L. And then we have to specify those ports. So 5601 ports and localhost. And then we need to put the port on the back end as well. So 5601. And then after that, our IP address. So let's switch back over to the website right fast and grab our IP address. Go back over to our terminal, and let's paste that in the end. And that's essentially how you get into it, or how you forward your ports. So let's press enter, type in our password for the server. It's basically creating that SSH connection, and it's also encrypted. And now, just so you guys know, you won't see anything here. It's connected. It's forwarding the port through SSH for the server. And so it'll look like it's frozen, but it's actually not. And let's switch back over to our web browser. And let's open up another tab, and all we have to do is type local and then our port, which is 5601, and press enter, and it'll get us over to Elastic. And this is basically the landing page for Kibana. So what I'm gonna do is just hit explore on my own, and it'll take us to the main website. I'm not gonna go through everything within the app, but I just want to show you guys how to set up at least an index for Apache, and then we can visualize it using Kibana. So let's type discover, and the first thing it's going to do is allow you to create a index pattern. So let's click there first, and let's go down, and you can see the matches that we have there, but what we're looking for is logstash. So logstash, that's our index, and then let's put a dash there just to specify our logs with dates on them. Now let's see, timestamp. It looks as though we're having some issues with it while it's not reading it. It should be able to read it, but let's switch back over to our server right fast, because it may be some changes we need to make. All right, and so I'm logged back into the server, and I believe we're having some permissions issues based on my research right fast. So I just want to show you guys what I'm about to do. So let's go sudo ls-la, and then if we go under our var log, let's look at var log first. So Apache, if we look at Apache right now, doesn't have read. So I want to add a read to this directory, and that way logstash can actually read this file that's under here. I believe that's what the problem is. It's not seeing the log file. So let's go sudo and let's change chmod, and then let's put the actual permissions that we want. So we want 754, and if we need to change it to 5, 4 is for just read only. And so let's just do a or, capital or for recursive mode. We can go back in here to var log and then Apache, and let's just specify that directory right fast. So Apache 2, and that way Kibana should be able to read it because we're giving it read access to that file. And it may need execute, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe this should fix the issue. So let's go down, press enter, and then we can run that ls again, and we can look at our Apache, and as you can see, we have read access now for the world. So right now it was, or before that, it was just read and execute for the admin group, and then read, write, execute for the owner, which is root. So let's go down and see if we can actually see it now, because what I did was recursive, and so when I did recursive, it gave any file in this directory read access. So let's see if we can go back to our server. I wonder if we need to restart. We shouldn't have to restart. It should just automatically start seeing it. So let's switch back over, and then let's hit close. Let's open it back up right fast and see what happens. Let's type logstash. It looks like we're still having that same issue. We should be able to select it based on the timestamp. So 1 second. All right, so it looks like I had to change the permissions again. I just made it 5 so it can execute the file. So as you can see, logstash, I typed in logstash as the name. If we go down here under timestamp, that's exactly what we want to search, the timestamp. So let's hit create index pattern. All right, cool. So it pulled in all that information for us from those log files. So we're good to go. So let's go back to discover right fast. And then as you can see, it started pulling in all those logs. As you can see, it kind of brings in a chart. So it had like 78 hits, and it just breaks down all the logs within that file for us. And you can also view details of each one of these logs. So if we hit the down arrow, you can look at the table format, and then you can also look at the JSON format. So it'll put it in a JSON format for us. And that's what Logstash is there for. It's super cool. Logstash is awesome. It basically handles that ETL process of the log files, and so we can see it in Kibana. Now, let me show you guys something. So in here, you can actually search. It's super cool, and it has auto completion now, so it's very simple to use. But let's switch back over to my terminal because I want to run another for script, and I'll just copy one that I've written out already because I want to generate some 404 requests. So let's paste that in there, and this will generate those 404 requests on the server. And I actually run it a couple times, and that's good enough to see. And so if we switch back over to Elasticsearch, we can go up here, back up to the search, and you can type specific things in there. So response, and then let's put a colon in there, 404. And press enter, and it'll search through our logs and it'll look for the 404 response. It looks like I need a space in there. That's why it probably didn't look right. Let's press enter. Yeah, there we go. So it looks right 100%, but that's the 404 error. As you can see, I ran it a couple times, that for loop. So you can filter based on responses and all that. Now, let me show you guys how to visualize the logs if we want to. So if we go back over to that little hamburger, and then we can go down to visualize library, and we can create us a new visualization. So click here, and we can go down to aggregation based. We can look at, it's a whole bunch in here, lenses, maps, custom visualization, but I'm gonna go to the aggregation based. So let's select there, and let's create us a pie. And then all we have to do is specify our source, which is our data source, which is that logstash. As you can see, this is a full, pie, but let's say we want to break it out because that'll make it look a whole lot better. And under bucket, let's hit add, and let's hit split slices, and then select an aggregate. So we can go in here and let's go to terms, and then we can select the field. So let's go under response again. Let's see if we can find a response keyword, and let's see, order by count. That's fine. Yeah, that'll work for us. Response keyword. Let's hit updates. There we go. So you'll see we got a 404, and now we got the 400 responses as well in there, and then the rest store 200. So that's super cool. You can kind of splice up your pie, showing a specific field or breaking it out by a specific field. And it's a whole lot more you could do in here. I'm just showing you some of the basics. I can't go too deep, otherwise this video will be over an hour or so. But this accomplishes the task of looking at the Apache logs. using the Elasticsearch. All right, so that wraps up my tutorial. I hope this helps you better manage and visualize your Apache logs on the Akamai cloud using the Elasticsearch. Now, don't forget to experiment with different configurations to suit your specific needs. And thanks for watching, and remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more videos on this channel. This is Josh signing off, and peace.